Okay, next story.
Okay, Gary. A flower map to help New Zealand beekeepers?
Yes, is this a good idea? Margaret, what is your thought on this idea? But I'll tell you more about it.
I'm listening.
And this came from the Changing World podcast, which is a podcast put out by Radio New Zealand. And it's got some good stories in it, eh? This one's about beekeeping. And quoting from the article, as beehive numbers continue to skyrocket off the back of the Manuka honey boom, scientists, iwi, and industry groups are coming together to study the honey-producing potential of New Zealand's native vegetation. So I've got a little quote here from the podcast. Have a listen to this.
And there's a lot of interest in finding ways to gather that honey more effectively. That's why scientists, beekeepers, Māori landowners and software engineers are all working together to create something called the Honey Landscape Map. The dream is that this map will reveal the honey-producing potential of native stands of vegetation all around New Zealand.
Wow, sounds awesome. And they reckon they'll be completed in the next 5 years. So we'll have to wait and see, eh?
This really excites me, and I'd be really keen to see that. And I suppose there'd be the further thing, like once you map it, then start taking honey off at those certain flowering times and then see what honey is produced and then match it up with those flowerings and then maybe get them tested. And gosh, it's just a big, huge thing that they're looking at. It sounds awesome.
Yes, and this podcast is about 20 minutes, so it's a great listen, and it's got some good ideas on. I learnt that the Maori word for honey is mere.
Mere. Oh, very good. And I didn't know that. It's quite awesome. Mere.
Yep. And over 100,000 new hives were registered last year. Wow. It's crazy, isn't it? And this work's going to really help commercial beekeepers finding new locations, isn't it?
Well, I don't know whether that's such a good idea, really, but there you go.
Well, the other thing is that the guy from the iwi there, he said, and the iwi is tribe in New Zealand for you overseas people, and he said that new bylaws may be passed to limit the number of hives in certain areas based on the map on how many hives an area can sustain. So that's going to stop people putting hives near your boundaries and stuff like that.
Well, so how are they going to do that? Are they going to... I just wonder about that.
Councils are going to pass bylaws.
Yeah, but the point is who's going to judge who's allowed to have what where? Is it like if you've already got beehives, you'll have a higher priority, but if they're a commercial output and the government's supporting them, will they say you can't have your bees there anymore?
I guess it's the first person to apply. I'm guessing that when these bylaws are proposed, then people have the right to make their submissions and say what they think. And you can do that, Margaret.
Yeah, well, I will be if that's the case, because I think that there's a lot of hobbyists out there that may get pushed out of things because they're trying to, I don't know, I just had an uneasy feeling about that one.
Well, I don't think a hobbyist with 2 hives is the problem. I think it's a guy with 100 hives.
So you're saying that it could be used to stop overstocking on
Overstocking land, yeah.
Well, that might be the other side of the coin.
Could be.
Okay, so I reckon this will be interesting to see what happens, and hopefully they put it out to the public in big ways so that we can have more information about what these new bylaws they're looking at.
Absolutely, and so I highly recommend you click on that link there to have a listen to the full podcast because you can learn a lot more. And we had no feedback about that, but it's still an important issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's still being fed around the beekeeping community, so I'm sure we're going to hear more about this as we go along.